Welcome to the Masons Podcast, your source of insight and innovation in New Zealand building and construction. Each episode explores the products, systems and solutions that support trades, specifiers and developers to deliver high quality, durable and efficient buildings across Aotearoa, New Zealand. From building envelope performance to flooring, acoustics and fire separation systems, we share practical knowledge and ideas that help shape the built environment.
Hi, I'm Michelle and I'm a building designer and I'm here with Masons Technical Manager Arthur Whitfield. Today we're talking all about Masons tapes, what they do, why they matter for New Zealand builds, and hopefully provide you with some practical tips on getting the most out of them. We'll also cover common pitfalls to watch out for and how Masons solutions can help keep your building efficient, comfortable and long-lasting. Okay, let's dive into today's topic. Now, for the purposes of keeping this simple, Arthur, for those that aren't familiar with these products, can you tell me what exactly is a flashing tape?
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. A flashing tape is a pliable or flexible material that, in this case, has a self-adhesive layer on the back, so it can be bonded to things like flexible wall underlay. Now, flashings have an ancient history and they go right back to ancient times. People use things like lead or possibly copper, easily beaten metals, and they use them in roofing and deflecting corners of buildings, intersections to deflect water. They're all about deflecting water and keeping water out of places we don't want it to go.
Great, thanks Arthur. So what's the point of a flashing tape and why do we actually need to use it?
Okay, so flashing tapes are actually required in the building code to flash the openings in frames where joinery is going to go. So that is a requirement of the building code. That is fitted over the underlay, whatever that may be. Particularly interested in protecting the sill and the jamb and the intersections, and also the head of the window opening or the joinery opening and the jamb, the corners particularly. The corners are very vulnerable. It was proven some time ago. The other place that flashing tape is commonly used now is to seal out water and air in either flexible air barriers or rigid air barrier systems.
Okay.
There are other uses for flashing tapes, but those are the main ones.
Right. So it basically keeps the water out and seals things up properly.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah, and it's all in compliance with E2AS1 of the New Zealand Building Code.
There's requirements, especially around joinery openings, yes.
Okay, thank you. Is it mainly for waterproofing or does it help with air control too at all?
It does, especially if we're dealing with the flexible air barriers or rigid air barriers. Another area that it would very much help with the control of movement of air is if you were working on high energy efficient homes or energy efficient homes or passive homes. I call it flashing tape, but essentially there's a whole lot of work that needs to be done to make sure that you seal up the entry and exit points for air. So there's a good deal of work for self-adhesive tapes to help seal up around joinery and other places in the construction.
Okay, yeah, great. And for anyone who's not familiar with Masons tapes, can both the hydro and 40 below tapes be used on all Masons wall underlays? Like, are there certain underlays which are more compatible to a particular tape?
So with Barricade FR, which is our standard house wrap or building paper, either 40 below or hydro can be used without any problem whatsoever. When you come to the Uni Plus and Uni Pro flexible air barriers, you need to use the 40 below platinum or flex. And with the Barricade weather defence system, same thing. Flex for preference, platinum is also something that can be used.
Perfect, okay. And is one easier to work with on site than the other?
It's probably best to talk to builders about that.
Yeah.
I myself find the 40 below ultra sticky and platinum really good to work with. I find them easy to handle. Hydro is also relatively easy to handle, but that modified bitumen glue line is really sticky. But I mean, it's quite an easy one to handle. I find flex the most challenging, but I've seen builders who use flex regularly and they're just amazing with it. So it's just so quick and efficient. So I think you just get good at what you use regularly.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. And I mean, this does happen. Can a builder mix the two tapes on the same project? Sometimes it's just reality. They have tapes left over from another job and...
It's a qualified yes. So for example, if it was a Barricade weather defence job and the builders had both hydro and they had A40 below, there would be no particular difficulty with using it on the same job. I would not want it used on the same joinery opening, potentially. Even then, it might not be an issue, but just best to avoid it.
Yeah.
When it comes to the specialised systems like Uni Plus, Uni Pro, Barricade weather defence system, it's best to stick to the specified tapes and no mixing and mingling.
Right, okay,
at all.
for sure.
Yeah.
And is that normally something that's specified by the designer, or is that a builder's choice when picking the tapes on site?
Okay, so another great question. So if we're talking standard house wrap like Barricade FR, designers may not actually specify the flashing tape. They may put something like flashing tape complying with building code and appraised by brands or covered by a code mark.
Sure.
That's quite possible. But when it's a specific system, so maybe it's a rigid air barrier system, maybe it's a proprietary system of some sort, the designer will quite often then call up the specific tape that goes with that system.
Okay.
And that would be the same for masons as well. So you wouldn't give a generic flashing tape specification then. It would be specific to the system in hand.
I can imagine if I was trying to install this on site, I'd end up in a bit of a sticky mess. We've touched on that. It's pretty forgiving to install, or
some less so.
You've got to be super precise, or
it's one of those things where the skill of the builder does show through. Like when I'm building a model or doing something for a display, I'm slow. Sometimes I get wrinkles and things, and it's just not that great. But when I go on site and see the guys who do it all day, every day for a living, they do an amazing job. So it's practice makes perfect.
I was just going to say that. It does, doesn't it? Yeah. And what are the usual mistakes you see with the installation of a flashing tape?
With flashing tapes.
Anything specific?
In general, probably the thing that's not done well is people fail to press them in with a tape applicator. Adhesive types on these tapes are pressure sensitive. And it's very important that they're activated and pressed into the pores of the wrap or the underlay tight with a tape scraper or something similar. The other thing, I wouldn't call it a mistake, but maybe it's a lack of knowledge. Super important that the surface is clean, dry, dust-free, contaminants. Now, that's not always easy for the builder to control.
No.
And some of these tapes are tolerant of very moderate amounts of moisture. Yeah. But you will get a poorer bond if there's any contaminants on the surface.
It's just natural, isn't it? Yeah, okay. And it's all about the bond, pressing it in tightly and making sure that that's a waterproof connection there.
And not stretching it. So flex is the one thing that's different. But with hydro, 40 below ultra sticky or 40 below platinum, we do encourage people not to stretch them out as they apply them. That basically induces tension into the adhesive layer and the facer, and that's not good.
It's going to want to pull back in, that could cause...
Well, it just causes separation.
Yeah, that's right.
Flex is a little bit more forgiving.
And what about rigid air barriers, where some are fibre cement, strand board, ply? Yeah. Can masons' flashing tapes be used on those as well?
That's a yes and no answer. So first of all, will the flashing tape bond to those surfaces? The answer is yes. Are the manufacturers of the various proprietary systems comfortable with masons being used on their systems? That is also a yes and no. So one of the major rigid air barrier supplying companies out there are comfortable with masons being used, and they list that in their literature as a choice.
Fabulous.
Some of the others do not. They list other tapes. So it's always best to check and be really sure.
Some of our listeners may assume this could also be used for sealing vapour barriers or roof underlay. Is this the case?
Yeah, so depending on the specification again, the 40 below range of flashing tapes act as a vapour barrier. We've had that tested and they are impervious to vapour. The platinum 40 below is particularly good. So in certain situations where you might wish to seal the laps against vapour transfer, then that could be used. Also, sometimes, very occasionally, people want to seal the laps of roof underlay.
Yes.
And so the vapour will still pass through the roof underlay, but they want to seal the laps to deflect water. One of the 40 below products would be a good choice.
Right. Now, in cladding, there's always penetrations that need to be sealed, whether it's from pipes and plumbing, windows and doors, electrical ventilation, the list goes on. Can masons' tapes be used to flash these wall underlay penetrations?
Well, the E2AS1 still shows flexible flashing tape being used to flash the penetration of a pipe or a conduit through a wall underlay. So strictly speaking, the answer is yes. Most commonly now, people will use a proprietary penetration seal.
Sure, yeah.
But it's just convenient. They do a great job. And I think the BCAs encourage people to do that. But strictly speaking, a flexible flashing tape correctly applied would be complying.
Sure. And would you use the same tape for pipe penetrations compared to windows and doors? Are there different sizes, the ones that are easier to work with?
There are definitely different widths. That is to do with the framing width and the requirement for at least 50 millimetres of tape to run down the face of the underlay outside of the opening. So that determines what size tape that the builders use.
Right.
So, for example, a standard 90 millimetre wide framing, you would select 150 millimetre wide tape. If people have got old terminology, 6-inch framing, what's it, 140 gauge size?
So you'd have a 200.
Yes, because you've got triple story or very high wind zone or maybe insulation requirements. Then you'd need to use, in our range, the 230 millimetre tape. For example, compatibility is a different thing. Usually when we're talking about compatibility, people are talking about sealant and expanding foam compatibility. They're worried about reactions and they may also be concerned about adhesion. Facade engineers particularly want to know if the sealant or the foam is going to actually make a proper bond to the face of the tape.
Right, okay. And you would have smaller, like thinner flashing tapes too for going around pipes because you don't want the big wide ones.
To be honest, most people use some form of penetration or proprietary seal these days. There would be plumbers and electricians who possibly need to do it. Sometimes maybe they get caught out or it's just they've got a little bit of tape. But yes, you wouldn't want a big thick piece of tape. They would probably cut it down.
Right, okay. Well, let's touch on the sealability of nails and screws through the flashing tape. How does this work?
We test our products voluntarily to the AAMA standards. The AAMA standards for flashing tapes, or they actually call them a different name over there in America, we test a whole range of things, pliability under different temperatures, adhesion to common materials, water resistance, UV resistance, and the penetration of screws and nails. Okay. And this is really important because when people fit the window joinery, there is a requirement to usually screw these days, or nail through the window surround and through to the framing. Now, on the horizontal member, the sill, we talked before about how and corners are vulnerable to water sitting there and soaking into the framing, causing problems. It's very important that if any water does form or run down and sits on that sill, it doesn't then track down through a nail or a screw that's been put in.
Absolutely, through our waterproofing layer.
Right. So the tapes are required to be tested to see if they seal or self-seal once a nail or a screw goes through. Now, nails are pretty easy. Most tapes will handle nails, but not all tapes will handle screws. Now, tapes are getting better, technology's better, the glue line technology's better, but up until quite recently, at least 2 of our 40 below products required 2 layers on the sill. And people used to get quite upset, builders got frustrated, and the reason we did that, everybody, was because we had to get screw sealability. Okay. Nail sealability is not difficult to get. Screw sealability is.
Right.
Well, good news, you change things, work with the suppliers, retest it, and now we can go to 1 layer on the sill for all 40 below and hydro products. That's just hot off the press.
Fabulous. Okay. Builders will love that. So, right, in other words, the tape compresses around the fixing when it goes through, creating a seal.
Yes, that would be true if there was something coming on and pressing up against the tape, like a cleat or a batten or an element, and a screw or a bolt or a nail holding it tightly. But what happens is the adhesive or glue line actually forms itself back around the penetration. It self-seals. Some people call it self-healing. Self-sealing is the term.
Yeah, okay, thanks. And that prevents your water from seeping through into the penetration and into the wall cavity, so it all remains dry. Very clever. Arthur, when waterproofing the sill, and I guess specifically with the sill corners, there are various methods. Can you share with us what these methods are? Right.
So for mason system, we require the use of either pre-moulded corner soakers. Ours are blue. There are others out on the market of different colours. Basically, we strongly prefer to use ours because it's part of our system, but frankly, if you use somebody else's pre-moulded corners, you've still protected your corners well. The corner we're talking about is the jamb and sill framing and the framing set out. So use our pre-moulded mason's corner soakers, sometimes called hydro guards, first. Alternatively, if you don't have any, you can cut a corner soaker out of the tape, carefully place that according to our instructions. You can find that at mpb.co.nz, products, 40 below or hydro, and follow the instructions, and then fit the rest of your flashing tape. Now, some other companies allow butterflies at both the top 2 corners of the window opening and the bottom 2 corners. That's not Mason's system. Butterflies at the top corner, head and jamb intersections are fine. At the bottom, it's got to be either a plastic pre-molded soaker or you make a soaker out of our tape. Just a small thing, but it matters because our products are code marked and the instructions and all the documents that go with it are part of that code mark. So when you deviate away from that, you kind of moved away from the code mark.
Yeah,
just something
you've got to be
note,
careful about that.
but technical.
Absolutely, yep. So no butterfly methods on the sill to jam.
Not at the bottom.
Intersections. Okay. We use a lot of expanding foam and sealants when creating penetrations. Will these products bond to 40 below and hydro?
We have completed a good deal of testing with one partner sealant and foam company that we work closely with.
Okay.
They are published on the Masons website, and designers and facade engineers can access that. So we've done essentially a lot of premium foams and premium sealants against all of our 40 below flashing tapes and our premium underlay solutions. So people can have a look at that.
Okay.
Now, we welcome inquiries, so if any of the other sealant and foam companies, premium companies want to work with us, we're happy to sort of work and complete tests and publish the results. So people can choose their favourite sealants or foams. You mentioned compatibility a few times. The concern there, especially for architects, is that if they call up a flashing tape, there might be a reaction with the sealant that they put in as a wet seal, air seal. That is extremely uncommon, so uncommon that we confidently say there is no reaction we know of.
That's great.
With 40 below
Good
glue
to
line.
know. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay. Just to repeat that it does matter if the surface of the tapes are damp or dry, so just make sure that they are dry and cleaned before
Yes.
application of anything else.
To that point, some of these polyurethane expanding foams, a light mist spray of water actually increases the adhesion and their performance substantially. So, I mean, strictly speaking, according to the instructions, once you've actually got your tape on and you're going to put your air seal in with expanding foam, you're actually supposed to run a damp rag or to do a light mist spray to get a perfect bond. That's just me being weird and technical.
Yeah,
everybody.
no, but, it all matters. Okay, and great to know. With the hydro tape, it can be installed at certain temperatures and same with the 40 below. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Right. So let's start with hydro. Hydro is sort of an older technology. It works on modified bitumen, which is a super reliable, very effective adhesive and soft sealant and that sort of thing. The thing with it though is we're familiar with in summer, tar on the road, it can get a bit sticky and get a bit soft. So hydro doesn't like high temperatures. And it also, when we think about the road analogy again, bitumen on the road, when things get really cold, it gets brittle. So the same with hydro, it doesn't like really cold temperatures.
So there's an optimum temperature to install it. It makes it workable.
It needs to be above 5 degrees and below 40 degrees. Okay. Often people will warm it in the ute on the way there, stick it on the hood of the ute, use a heat gun, and even use an adhesion primer.
Right.
So this is old school flashing tapes.
And 40 below, that can be installed at any time in New Zealand, as we don't normally drop below. I believe that can go to -10 or up to 40 degrees. So that covers all areas of New Zealand.
Absolutely. And we were conservative when we published that data because you don't want to go too crazy. So it actually has probably a bit more tolerance baked in than what we even say. So,
Sure. And what about exposure? Do the tapes match the durability and exposure times of the wall underlays where Uni Plus is 90 days and Uni Pro is 150 days?
They definitely do. In fact, most of them will exceed the published UV exposure of the underlays.
Referring back to the website, Arthur, what kind of compliance documentation can masons offer designers or builders? And do masons' flashing tapes comply?
Absolutely. So if people go to our website, mpb.co.nz, they can search for the Code Mark Certificate of Conformity, which is a major piece of evidence to full compliance. They can also look for the instructions about how to apply them, which could be useful to attach to documentation or to review. But, a Code Mark Certificate of Conformity is no easy thing to obtain and keep these days. There's a really strong requirement around quality, lots of auditing, regular inspections of installation, and a whole bunch of things go into it. So we're really proud of the Code Mark Certificates of Conformity that we hold, and we work really hard to keep them up and be worthy of holding them.
Perfect, yep. So designers can specify with confidence. It makes it easy to tick all the boxes, doesn't it?
Hope so.
Okay, one thing I haven't touched on yet is just briefly, what wind zones can these tapes, hydro and 40 below, be used in? Do they match the wind zones of the underlays?
They do. There's no restrictions. They can be used in all of the standard wind zones. Of course, SED is a special engineered design. We don't go there.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you, Arthur. You've done a great job breaking down the mason's flashing tapes for everyone listening.
Sure.
Now, before we wrap up, are there any last tips for builders and installers to get the best results with these flashing tapes?
Look, with flashing tapes, it's about matching the right flashing tape to the underlay system that you're using. Clean, dry, moisture-free, contaminant-free. Use pressure. Unless they say they're a stretch tape or specifically made for stretching around corners, things, don't stretch them. Keep them cool, store them cool and dry for the most part. They're pretty good these days, but you don't leave them out in the grass for 3 days before you put them up. I mean, just, it's expensive product. Just enjoy the results you get.
Oh, great. Thanks, Arthur. Users can find the installation instructions for the flashing tapes, as Arthur mentioned, on the Masons website, where you can also find information on all Masons products, systems and solutions. Join us next time as we continue to explore smarter ways and solutions to building in New Zealand.
Thanks, Michelle. Thanks for listening to the Masons podcast. We hope you've gained some practical insights and ideas for your next project. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and visit us at mpb.co.nz for more information on our product, systems and solutions. And join us next time as we continue to explore smarter ways and solutions for building in New Zealand.
This podcast is for general information only. While we aim to provide accurate details on building products and systems, Masons is not liable for reliance on this content. Always follow product specifications, manufacturer's instructions, and relevant building codes.